Imagine, if you will, sitting down to your morning coffee, turning on your home computer to read the day's newspaper. Well, it's not as far-fetched.
Yo, it's your boy Zeta Don, and today we have a special guest on Inspired Empire podcast. Today we got Tamika Naea. I have to remember your last name.
Naea.
For some reason, Naea. See, I don't know nobody's last name that comes on here. I apologize. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I actually appreciated that question, and I watched your other ones. I think we talked about it because it really made me think. I think a lot of times the first thing I say is like, I'm a mom, which is like evident, but I'm way more than that.
See,
so
I didn't want to like introduce like she's a great mom.
Okay, so I did write something. So Tamika Naea, better known as Tiki, because I think that's what you're gonna call me anyways. That's my nickname. I'm Samoan and white. Born and raised here in Utah.
Shout out to all the Samoans.
Yes.
Passionate Samoans.
Exactly. I'm a self-love advocate, imperfect but destined to always be the best version of myself. Hardworking mom. I do have a full-time job. I work with a local nonprofit organization called Candle in a Dark Room. We kind of talked about that earlier. We just coach and encourage survivors and victims of trauma to heal and just find purpose in their trauma. I also work as a bartender and server for a Tin Barrel beverage company. And then I'm also working on creating my own business. I do have 2 amazing boys. My oldest is turning 11 next week. And then my youngest is 8. So,
okay.
Yeah.
And Tamika Naea. Okay. And you wanted to come on and talk about self-love, healing to achieve self-love.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Why do you feel like that's important to talk about?
So I think that for me, what I noticed was a lot of like my relationships and the way that I perceived myself was reflecting my unhealed trauma that I had, growing up as a kid and things that I've gone through. You just kind of have to, I think a lot of people just sweep those things under the rug. They don't deal with the emotions and they just try to move on. And then that unhealed trauma comes back and it's disguised as anger or frustration, sadness, depression, anxiety. So it comes back because it always comes back as something else. So about 2 years ago, I kind of was at rock bottom and I was like, I can't feel this way anymore. So I decided to really just kind of face my emotions, tap into that trauma and try to heal that so that I could just be the best version of myself. So I think everyone goes through trauma of some sort, big or small, in their minds. Definitely is something that's super important for future relationships and just everyday life.
This is one question I want to ask you. Who do you feel like women go through more trauma in relationships or men?
I think it's very equal, honestly.
You think so?
I think that 2 unhealed individuals coming together in a relationship can be very toxic. I think we try to justify and make things work. Like I said, unhealed trauma comes in as anger and frustration and anxiety and depression and all of that. So 2 people that are trying to coexist together in a relationship that haven't really dealt with their emotions, their trauma, could be a very bad combination.
Right. When you have went through that, what do you feel like your symptoms were?
So for me, the way that I dealt with my trauma is it came back as like insecurity. So why am I not good enough? Why am I not, comparing myself to other people? So-and-so's so pretty. Like, why can't I be like that type thing? Which just, I think it ruined a lot of like my previous relationship. I think that had a lot to do with, that ending just because I did have all of this built up, emotions that I was trying to just bottle up. So for me, it came through as insecurity. It came through as like jealousy. So that really, I think it influenced a lot of my life before I started like really working through and healing my trauma. So,
right. I'm glad you're actually talking about this because I'm actually like going through this right now.
Yeah.
So like for me, on my end, because I'm actually going to counseling, I've learned that mine creates like I get angry like really fast. I can just get angry. It happens when it's something I don't want to talk about or like something that's just like I feel is just not important,
or just a trigger, probably.
Yeah, it's a trigger for me. Even if I know I'm in the wrong, it just happens. Like,
Yeah.
I can't help it, you know. So I think it's important because I didn't know that about myself until it was like in counseling. They're like, "Hey, you have like some trauma that you need to get fixed."
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, because honestly, I thought like really high of myself. I thought I was just like this perfect being. I'm like, Psh, I'm fine. Like, it's the other person.
Mm-hmm.
And I go to counseling. It's just like, no, it's you.
Yeah.
It's you. I mean, it might be a little bit of her, but like, it's you.
Yeah. Well, and
you're
that's the
doing this.
thing too, is I think it's interesting, just from my experience, from what I've seen. I think a lot of men, just because of society and how they put this expectation of men, they're supposed to be tough and strong, and they don't cry and they don't have emotions. They just, push through all of these things. I think that a lot of men just turn to anger. It's just the easiest thing to do. And honestly, it's taking accountability, because once you can take accountability for your part in whatever happened or whatever situation, because I feel like for me, that was the hard part. I was kind of in this victim mentality, like, oh, poor me, it never works out for me, or this about me. I find it was like, no, like, you obviously have some things to work on. And so I stopped worrying about what that person or who hurt me or whatever the case may be, and I focused on what I could fix, because I can't control someone else.
Right.
I can't tell someone, this is your problem, this is what you need to do. They have to be willing to work on that themselves.
Right.
So I was able to take accountability and say, okay, look myself in the mirror and just be like, all right, so we got these things to work on, and that's my focus, not focusing on someone else. Because if you're putting your expectations or trying to fix someone else, you're going to be disappointed.
Right. One weird thing is, for me, another thing they told me was like, when things get hard, you just give up. So it's like, I'd be like, oh, let's just break up.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I didn't want to deal with it. I didn't want
It's easier to run.
Yeah, it's just easier to run. So, and I just noticed I kept doing it. I'm like, why do I keep doing it?
Yeah.
It's like, you really don't want that, because to be honest, men don't want to be alone. I don't know. I don't care who you are. Men really don't.
Y'all like to pretend sometimes.
Yeah,
Let's
do.
be honest.
We love, and sometimes we don't understand who we love until we lose them. So like, we deal with a lot of that shit, and it's really sad. So like,
It
because
is.
for me, I broke up with my the mother of my child, right? And I was so sad, and I didn't understand why.
Yeah.
Because I was like, dang, maybe I really do love her. Like,
Right.
then I'm going to counseling, and I got even more sad. I'm like, oh my God, it's me. Like, I'm the problem. So it's rough. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's really important. You're talking about that. When you heal, like, what is your process?
So for me, honestly, I think it's feeling all the emotions, because for so long I was trying to put on this like face of, I'm good, I'm this strong person, I'm just hardworking, and I'm just going to do whatever I got to do, which is fine. But if you're doing it to mask other things, it's not going to work out. It's always going to come out. And if you're hiding it for so long, it can come out in the worst way possible. Where for me, I think it was a good like 3 to 5 months, I would just cry every day. I'd be crying. I'd just feel horrible. I didn't feel like I was worth anything. And for a while, because I've had depression before, like postpartum depression when I had my kids. But then my kids were always that like pushing force to like keep me going. And I got to a point where I felt like they would be better off without me. Like, that's how bad it got. So I finally got to that point where I was like, I can't do that. Like, my kids need me. I need me. And so it started out small. I started going to counseling. I think counseling really helps, just because it's an unbiased opinion. A lot of times we like to turn to, someone. We just want to get it off our chest. But when we're getting people's opinions and you're just hearing one thing from someone else, and you're never focusing on what you want or need. You're focusing on what everyone else thinks about you or what they think you should do, which their opinions are influenced by their trauma and experience. So if you can't get to the root of your trauma and what you need to work on, then you're always just brushing the surface.
Doing the same thing.
Yeah, so going to counseling was great. I was able to kind of just release all of my emotions and then start working through. And a lot of times when I would go, I know exactly what I needed to work on and why I was going through things. And she'd be like, like, you just have to do it, like, do the work. So I did that. And then fitness honestly saved my life for a little while. The gym was my therapy, just being able to go and like let out all of that frustration or all of my emotions in the gym was really great for me. And just, I don't know, just daily reminders, just kind of always putting my main goal as being the best version of myself, has always just been the one thing that keeps me going on this. And I say it's an intentional journey because we're all in a life journey, right? But this intentional journey for me was self-love and loving myself and knowing my self-worth. So
Do you feel like when people go through breakups, they turn to social media too fast?
yeah, I think when you haven't healed that trauma, there's a good chance you were with someone to give you comfort through those things. So when there's that breakup, I think people turn to, other relationships. You break up and go straight into a new relationship. Again, not dealing with the trauma, not dealing with what just happened. You just have to sit and process, and a lot of people don't do that. I think turning to social media, turning to other people, turning to, alcohol, drugs, whatever it may be, to avoid what's actually wrong and how you're actually feeling. So, absolutely.
That's interesting. And you brought up postpartum because the mother of my child had postpartum.
Yeah.
And it was, I don't even know how to explain it. It's the craziest feeling because it's you're looking at the mother of your child and you're what she's like. So postpartum will flip how she is.
You're like, who is this?
Yeah, what is going on?
Yeah.
And people don't talk about how it affects the man too. Because I start feeling like I had it. So it was
or you're doing something wrong to trigger her or make her feel that way.
It's me doing that, and then it's rough. So shout out to people who can deal with that. It's rough. It's hard.
Yeah. Well, like I said, my kids are 11 and 8, so it's been a while since I've had them. And at the time, even back then, 11 years ago, people didn't talk about postpartum depression. So I went through it. I was going through a really hard time, and I just thought something was wrong with me. I was just why am I like this? Why do I have all these emotions? And I love that postpartum is being at least talked about. It's now a conversation. People recognize it, and it's something too now that I'm oh my gosh, that's what I had, because people are now talking about it. So for my friends that are pregnant, I'm listen, postpartum depression is real. If you need help, reach out, so that they're aware nothing's wrong with you. Your body has just gone through so much, and you're just trying to adjust to everything new. But I think it's a good idea to mention the men, because you guys do have to deal with the the effects of it.
I wish I would have reached out to somebody about it, because I always heard about it, but I'm oh, it won't happen to me. And when it did, it was whoa.
Yeah.
Because it's I don't even know how to explain it. It's this emotion. It's an overwhelming emotion that just fills the whole room.
Mm-hmm.
So it's I didn't know how to adjust to it. She didn't know how to adjust to it. So it was we were both just in there just
struggling.
We just in there just doing whatever.
Yeah.
It's hard, man. So whenever I hear people go through that, I'm my heart goes out to them.
So,
I
get it.
Yeah.
But it's good that, like I said, the conversation is being had. Back in the day, it was not. So I'm glad it's being talked about.
When you had postpartum, besides therapy, was there anything else you could do besides working out or therapy?
So when I was going through my postpartum, I didn't do any of that. It was more self-destruction than anything. It was super emotional and depressed and just trying to be a mom and adjust to that life. Their dad was in college at the time, a couple hours away, so I had a lot of great support from my family and friends, but ultimately it felt like I was alone and I was doing it by myself for a little while. So I wish I had the tools that I did to, move that process along, because it did take a lot of I guess I remember a lot of my kids' life, but I remember it as a struggle, and it sucks to look back and think that.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
When you were pretty much going through that, and the dad was away, and your family was helping, did they notice you? Did they notice you?
Oh yeah.
They could see it.
Yeah, but it comes as. So for me, I was I am not doing anything right. So I was tearing myself down already. So if someone, I'm pretty sure my mom was are you okay? What's going on? And then I got defensive, because I'm
Right.
I already feel like I'm doing a shitty job. So please don't talk to me about it. I already know. So I was very defensive. So they noticed.
Yeah, 'cause it gets rough, like when kids are involved for some reason. Like it gets rough, like because for on the men's side, it's like, damn, like we just become dads, so that's one thing.
Yep.
You can't go to the gym when you want to. You can't go to the movies. You can't do anything, and then your girl is going through it, and then you might talk to her and just you're talking to her normal, and just something just triggers her. So it's like there's that, and
you just don't know what's going to
yeah,
trigger
you
it.
don't know what's gonna trigger it. It just gets bad, and then like men, like you just said, we don't talk about stuff. So like when you guys want to express yourself while you have postpartum, we're just like shutting down.
You're like, what?
On the inside, we're like, what the fuck? Like, what is going on?
And I think that's okay. I think we don't give ourselves enough credit either. Like even just listening sometimes is all we need. Maybe they're not coming to you for, the answer or
They
to
just
fix
want you
it.
to listen.
They just want to get it out. Like it's just frustrating. And so I can see where like you're trying to internalize and be like, okay, well, what am I supposed to say? I don't want to like trigger it. Even just acknowledging like I hear you. I honestly don't know how to fix it, but I'm here for you. And just that alone is probably everything that person needs at that time.
Right, because not gonna lie, like when my baby, I hate to call her my baby, the mother of my child, was going through it, I kind of just shut down because like I don't even talk about my own stuff. So like when she would do it, it just made me, I don't know how to like
almost uncomfortable.
Yeah,
probably.
It made me feel uncomfortable, and I didn't know how to express myself at the time.
And
I felt like I was just very immature, and I just kind of was like, like, can we like not talk about this now? Like, and
don't want to go there.
I feel bad about it because after talking about it in counseling, they're like, man, like now that you understand how she feels, like what would you do differently? And it's like, man, I would just listen to her and tell her I love her, a whole bunch of stuff. So it's rough because on the man side, we deal with a lot of shit. So like for me, I just got a new job. Like I just said, I was trying to transition with having a baby. I still live with my parents. She lives with her parents. On both
Housing
sides, I'm sure.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure both sides of the family want us to move out. I want to move out, and I don't have enough money.
It's expensive.
We don't want to pay for daycare, so like it's just like constantly just bam, bam, bam.
Yeah,
bam, bam,
it's a lot.
And then you come home and she has postpartum, and she hasn't talked to anybody all day, and she just pours it out, and you're just like, bruh, I don't.
Yeah.
It's just it's bad. So
well, and like I said, society puts this like. Yeah, the stigma of you're the provider. You're supposed to figure it out. You need to know all of these things. And I think we're realizing like that's not the case. It's okay for you guys to struggle too. And I think we need to, acknowledge that you guys go through a big change as well as us women that have the child. So it's just, you're trying to survive for yourself, survive for your family, raise a child. Like all of that together is really stressful. So.
So do you feel, would you say that you're fully healed?
So that's the funny thing about healing. I think it's a lifestyle choice and decision. You have to constantly choose to heal and to acknowledge your emotions and work through it, only because we're always going to have traumas that come up unexpectedly, right? So you have to be in a good space to acknowledge that something's happening, and the more that you practice that and acknowledging your emotions and the trauma that's happening, that's when you can heal faster, I guess, through that trauma, because I don't think you're ever fully 100% healed, but choosing that lifestyle will put you in a better spot for when those traumatic things happen to you or life hits you hard, because we're all going to have bad days. It's not what happens to you, it's what you do with it. So something traumatic happens, okay, let's deal with it. I feel frustrated, I'm sad, I hate that this is happening. And then you have to kind of get to a point where you're like, okay, so what am I going to do with this? Am I going to use this for the greater good? Am I going to be a good example? Am I going to, rise above it and do better next time or whatever the case may be? So
I feel you. For me, right now, because not gonna lie, when we did break up, at first I thought I wasn't gonna care, like, oh, whatever, but like I was telling you, I got really sad, and we still do family days, and I get sad after family days, like stupid sad, so it like triggers something inside me, because it's like, oh, like damn, I hate this. So like for me, when I go to counseling and stuff, and then they talk about stuff, it triggers me. So like for me, I have to not think about it, and then like, or if I have my son on a weekend, I'm just like, Like I don't know how to feel about it, and
Yeah.
it's like I don't know how to go about it because, like you said, people mask stuff. Like I
Mm-hmm.
would normally smoke, but like I don't feel right doing that because it's like I won't get over it. You
Yeah.
know. So how many years have you been dealing with that? Because I'm like I feel like it's a
Yeah.
constant battle.
Literally your whole life. Yeah. I feel like um I tried to mask it for, I mean, up until a couple years ago when I decided that I couldn't do it anymore. Um, that it was, hurting me more than anything and hurting the relationships in my life. So, um, yeah, it's just, you're going to deal with it for your whole life. You're always going to have the unexpected happen. There's always going to be something, but you have to mentally prepare yourself, emotionally prepare yourself for those things. And it's kind of like working out. You build the muscle, right? You have to build that emotional and mental stability to take on those traumatic experiences or take on whatever life throws at you, because it's just going to be continuous. But you can choose happiness and you can choose to overcome it.
Right. Do you feel like when you're, because I don't know if you're looking for other people, I'm not trying to put your business out there, but like when another person pursues you,
Yeah.
have you had a problem trying to like explain like, hey, I'm trying to heal, like I don't like.
Yeah.
Have you experienced that,
Honestly,
or-
so for me, I've seen it too often, just like in my circle of friends, family, and all of that, where they're moving on so quickly. And since I'm in this like intentional journey of healing and loving myself to the best of my ability, it's hard for me to watch that. So I actually haven't even been like entertaining the idea of dating just because I don't feel ready. I've been just putting myself as that focus and giving myself the love that I would like to receive so that when the opportunity is presented to me, I can recognize it and acknowledge it. Because right now I just feel like I don't know how I would even react to something like that. So
right? I mean, what would you say the healing process is between two people that were dating and they're trying to talk about getting back together?
mm, I think that obviously there's a reason. There was the breakup, like I mentioned, unhealed trauma. I think taking it slow is really important. Obviously, especially if there's a child involved, all you really want is your family to be together. But you want it to be in a healthy way. So I think if you're doing counseling individually to work on yourself, um, both of you being the best version of yourself or working towards that same goal for yourselves individually will help you be stronger as a couple. It'll help with the insecurities if that person is, focusing on their self-worth and self-love and not trying to just move past it. They can deal with that and get to a point where, for me, I've gotten to a point where certain things just don't offend me anymore. I don't care about what other people think about me, which that's been my whole life. I'm always worried about what do they think about me? What do they think about how I look? And I've always worried about that. So I'm finally to this point where I'm like, I don't give a fuck what anyone thinks. Like, I'm doing what I have to do. I know I'm doing my best. I know I'm working towards my best self. So for me, nothing like, you can't tell me anything that's going to like really trigger me or make me upset very easily. So I think it's just working individually on yourselves, taking it slow and making sure that it's the right thing. Because as much as you want it to be, sometimes maybe it's not. But I think that first step is just working on yourself.
Right. Um, as far as that, I was gonna ask you, I was just about to ask you that, like, what if it might not be the right thing?
Yeah.
Like, do you feel like that's just a tough pill to swallow, like for most people?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, again, I think it's a lot harder when you have kids just because you have to co-parent. You have to both be there for your child. So you're going to face this person probably for the rest of your life. So it's really working and being mentally and emotionally stable to be able to handle those situations. Like you said, when you're meeting up for family days or on the weekend, when you have your son by yourself and you're feeling sad, like you have to learn how to feel that emotion, but be like, you know what, right now, this is what's best, and find the peace within that.
You know, one weird thing I was gonna tell you, like when you're healing, you feel like a disconnect from like even friends. Like you just feel like
It's a lonely road.
it's not even lonely. It's just like I don't know. You feel like turned off by like certain energies. You're like, no, like not that right now. Isn't that weird? Like,
Well, you start to recognize things that you either justified or just were blind to in that moment, because I mean, if you're just going through the motions and you're just not even recognizing what everyone else is doing around you, when you start to realize that, that's when you start to be like, okay, that I don't like that vibe, I don't like that energy, because that's exactly like I've cut people off because, you know, certain energy, they're not helping me at all, they're not encouraging me, they're just, you know, they're not working on themselves, because that's going to bring you down if you're surrounding yourself with people that are just, you know, negative all the time, or victim mentality all the time, like poor me, because then it's going to pull you in. Misery loves company, so they're going to do whatever it takes to kind of like draw you in to be miserable with them.
Right. So I mean, we getting close to wrapping it up. What is something that you want to leave people with, like a message that you want to leave people with?
Yes, so I
we end?
actually have a quote, and it kind of goes with what we talked about. I saw it on Instagram the other day. So it says, healing isn't about filling your life with pleasure or never having a hard moment again. It's about being real and facing what you feel so that it doesn't accumulate in unhealthy ways. Being with the down moments is better than carrying unprocessed pain everywhere you go. It's funny because I've been healing and on this journey for so long. And for me, I kept thinking like, oh, if I'm healing, then I'm happy. If I'm healing, then, you know, I'm always having good days. And when I read that quote, I'm like, okay, it's okay to have bad days, because we do feel, like you said, we're never fully healed, I guess. So just remember that it's okay to have those bad days. It's okay to be depressed every now and then. But as long as you have that main focus to be your better self, know your self-worth, and just love yourself, it'll all come together in the end. So
Hey, man, that's dope. So I appreciate you coming in.
yeah, thanks for
Tamika
having
Naea,
me.
everybody. So that wraps up our podcast today. Church.